Hi there. So this video is an introduction to the lab or the performance model of lesson for a hybrid or online environment. This lesson model is inspired by Jennifer Gonzalez, who's the author of Cult of Pedagogy, which is a really amazing website, blog, and podcast. If you have not yet explored her materials, please do. It's super inspiring. She has a lot of great practical tips and tricks and ideas. And in this case, this lesson model was designed by a blog post from Jennifer Gonzalez called Making the Most of a 90-Minute Block. Now, this blog post was from 2017, so obviously it was designed more for an in-classroom experience. And just as a caveat for those who are not working in a block model, don't worry, this lesson model could be useful in any time frame, but it's inspired by looking at how a block model might work. So your reading for this module is Jennifer Gonzalez's post called Making the Most of a 90-Minute Block. And in that post, she lays out a variety of different models that you could use in a 90-minute period. This one is based on the model she calls the lab or the performance. So with that in mind, what is the goal of this particular model? The idea here is that you use this model when you need to create a structured opportunity for a learning activity that would take more time for the students to engage in. So it's ideal for things like a lab, a research project where you're giving students work time, group projects where students need to work together to create something, performances or presentations. So either the preparation for those or the actual performance or presentation that students might be doing in a class, design experiences, and of course, assessments. So this is an ideal kind of model to use when you are designing for that kind of experience. The key components, this one's super simple. So essentially, you have a synchronous opening or context setting at the beginning where you get everybody together, you make sure you're all on the same page, you make sure they know what they need to do. Then you give the dominant amount of time in the lesson over to the students to be working on whatever it is that they need to do. So it could be time to do their research and writing, it could be time to work in their small groups, it could be time to complete an assessment. And then you bring them together at the end with a closure activity of some kind. It could be a reflection, an exit ticket, the submission of whatever they've been working on during that time. Obviously, all of this would be done digitally when you're in a hybrid or online mode so that all students can participate at the same time. And a key component of this is because you're giving over a big chunk of time to the students to do with what they will, it's really important to set some good context and norms at the beginning of the class period. And depending on how old your students are or what their particular needs might be, it may be that you need to have some kind of a completion task that they do at the end of this lesson so you know they have done the work that they needed to do. The upside for you as a teacher is that because you are turning over the time to your students to work somewhat independently, you have the opportunity to then go between the various different individuals or groups and engage with them as needed. So as a teacher, perhaps you would use this opportunity to do some one-on-one meetings with students while the other students are working on a larger project. Or you might schedule meetings with each of the small groups to make sure that they're on task. So it's a much more flexible kind of lesson design, and it's definitely useful in either an online or a hybrid environment because you can either do this in a synchronous way or most likely you do it in an asynchronous way. So students who are, if you're in a hybrid environment, students who are at home might be doing something slightly differently than students in the classroom and vice versa. So let's take a look at the actual template, which is also included in your module. Now, I created this template based on and inspired by what Jennifer Gonzalez describes in her blog post. So I've included the link to that blog post again here on the template in case you need to get to it. And again, it's super simple, right? The idea is to think through the components of the lesson. And then if you are in a hybrid environment, the template allows you to think about what would the students at home be doing as opposed to what would the students in class be doing at the same time. So in this part of the lesson, they might all be doing the same thing at once. You may have everybody on a video conference, setting up the context, laying down the norms, making sure everybody understands what to do. And then you may move to working with students in class in a little bit more collaborative way, but setting the students at home loose to be able to do that work independently or with their small groups via a separate video conference. Now, if you are in a fully online environment, then you would just ignore this column and look, or excuse me, ignore this column, the students in class, and look specifically at what students would be doing at home, either synchronously or asynchronously. It is really important that you make sure you come back together at the end of this class. Now, that could be synchronous in that you have some kind of a little conversation or debriefing discussion as a class. It could also be that students simply submit something to you at the end of the class as a way to close out the learning. So this could be, for example, an online discussion where students post, hey, here's where I am and here's the question that I have going forward. It could also be that you have students post a Flipgrid video about here's the learning that I've done, here's what our student group is up to, or here is what I'm thinking about for my research. You could also do something very simple and just have them send you an email or send you a post through an online discussion. So really up to you what that closure looks like. But again, just like our other models, everything in this lesson needs to be in a digital format so students who are at home versus students in class versus students who may have missed class and need to catch up could do any of the activities that you've designed because they're all digital. So with that, take a look at this a little bit more deeply. Think about the times in your units where you would need to build in this kind of time for your students to have more workspace, and maybe think about using this model to help design those experiences. So good luck, and I will see you soon.